Chancellor, I now present a candidate for the degree of Doctor of the University. Chancellor, the Council of the University has resolved to award the degree of Doctor of the University to Mrs. Betty Byrne Henderson, AM. Chancellor, Betty Byrne Henderson was born in 1932 and educated at All Hallows School in Brisbane. After leaving school, she worked as a stenographer, a bookkeeper, and later as a junior sales clerk for an agency that sold cooking appliances and washing machines. It was in this position that she first experienced the challenge of selling, developing skills which would come to the fore when she and her husband, Bernie Byrne, began their car sales business in 1969. In establishing this privately owned family company, Betty Byrne Henderson and her husband made many personal sacrifices to overcome financial hardship. As well as selling their housing commission home to finance the Ford dealership for the north side of Brisbane, they were forced to use a caravan for office accommodation on their Chermside site. When her husband died in 1977, Betty Byrne Henderson had to fight even harder for success, battling against the chauvinism of a male-dominated industry in general, and in particular a car company that was not used to the idea of a woman running the show. She decided not only to carry on the Byrne business, but to make it even better. Shortly after taking up the position of governing director of the company in 1977, Betty Byrne Henderson put into place a 5-year expansion plan, buying additional property and establishing a used car outlet and a new Daihatsu dealership. Since that time, she has steered the company through a period of rapid expansion, developing the Byrne Group into one of the most successful car dealerships in Queensland. From an original staff complement of 35, the company now employs more than 140 people. Business turnover has grown from $8 million in 1977 to over $68 million in 1993. And in 1996, Byrne Ford ranked 29th in Queensland's top 400 privately owned companies. The company's achievements over the years have been recognized with several industrial awards. In 1991, the company was the first automotive dealer in Australia to attain Quality Assurance accreditation. As a tribute to its emphasis on customer satisfaction and servicing customer needs, Byrne Ford was presented with the President's Award in 1995, Ford's highest award in Australia for customer service. Outside her business interests, Betty Byrne Henderson has strong views concerning the improvement of society, particularly in the area of women's health. As past chairman of the Royal Women's Hospital Board from 1982 to 1991, deputy chairman of the Royal Women's Hospital Research and Development Fund from 1998 to 1995, and chairman of the Queensland Women Health Advisory Committee from 1988 to 1990. She has played a key role in improving the level of women's health services in Queensland. In these various positions, she has been dedicated to investigating women's health problems and to educating a people about the services available to them. She was particularly concerned with the welfare of women in remote areas, introducing travelling mammography buses to service the needs of women in outback areas. She also focused on Aboriginal health issues, paying special attention to the development of the midwife systems in Aboriginal communities. Since handing over the Byrne Group of companies to her son in 1996, Betty Byrne Henderson has concentrated on a wide range of board and community interests. She is presently involved as a national board member of the Committee for Economic Development of Australia and as a board member of the Brisbane City Council Transport Committee, the Queensland Harness Racing Board, the Brisbane Cricket Ground Trust, and the Queensland Corrective Services Commission. Her community interests include the Ronald McDonald House Committee, Zonta International, and the Queensland State Library Foundation, of which she is a foundation member. Past committees on which she has played an active role include the Customs House Restoration Campaign Council, Board of the Volunteer Centre of Queensland, Girl Guide Associations, Women of Substance, Women Chiefs of Enterprise International, State Water Resources, and Tradeswomen on the Move. Betty Byrne Henderson's significant contributions to business and to the community have resulted in a number of prestigious honours. In 1995, she was made a member of the Order of Australia for her services to women's health and to the community, and in 1996 she was appointed an honorary ambassador for the City of Brisbane. She has also been appointed a Fellow of the Australian Institute of Management, a Fellow of the Australian Institute of Company Directors of Australia, a Don Fraser Fellow, a Chancellor Fellow of the University of Queensland, and a Jack Parkinson Fellow of the Queensland University Foundation in 1995. It is especially fitting that the Council of Griffith University should honour Betty Byrne Henderson in recognition of her outstanding contributions to business and to the community. Chancellor, it is with great pleasure that I present to you Betty Byrne Henderson for admission to the degree of Doctor of the University.
I now call upon Dr. Henderson, AM, Doctor of the University, to deliver the occasional address.
Chancellor, the Honourable John McCrossan, Acting Vice-Chancellor Professor Dennis Lincoln, members of the Council, graduates and distinguished guests. Tonight, as well as bestowing this great privilege, Griffith University has been kind enough to invite me to give an occasional address, which sounds more like somewhere you live from time to time, doesn't it, rather than a distinguished speech on this most auspicious evening for us all. But perhaps the expression is peculiarly appropriate. After all, for me, universities have been places I've visited consistently across the past decade or two, in various council, senate, committee, and supporter roles. And as a result, I stand before you this evening as someone with maximum respect for education and what it means for Australia, but with somewhat minimal formal education of my own. In this sense, I've been standing knee-deep in the river and dying of thirst. So firstly, Chancellor and members of Griffith University's family, thank you for quenching that thirst so fulsomely with an honorary doctorate. No mere drink from the river, but an exquisite champagne version of recognition whose impact will flow throughout the rest of my days. I know that many of the wonderful speakers with whom Griffith students have contact bring distilled expertise, underpinned by considerable thought, reflection, and research. My graduations, in contrast, have been the graduations of life, hurly-burly of business, and the challenge of community involvement. I recall that a guest of Albert Einstein once asked to be shown his laboratory, and the great scientist replied by smiling, holding up his fountain pen and pointing to his head. In similar vein tonight, may I humbly draw from my own laboratory of experience and share some stories and views to illustrate what I have found important in achieving success in business life, as you now test out this new experiment of being a graduate. Success always requires chemistry between elements. It strikes me that the elements that you will have been touched by at Griffith, the elements in Griffith's mission statement, innovation, bringing disciplines together, internationalization, equity, social justice, and lifelong learning are especially apt in any discussion of success in contemporary times. Indeed, may I say how good it is to see a mission statement in use. Many of the organizations I see that are successful live their mission, keep it as their heartbeat, and the motivating and uniting force for the individuals who made up that organization, rather than taking out a prettily worded but hollow statement at annual report time each year and dusting it off. Individuals who are successful also live with the same sense of commitment to what they do. Of course, through our lives, we will all be part of several organizations, and you will take the mission, culture, and core values of Griffith University into whatever roles you assume, and what roles they may be. The people in this room are marked by an individual desire to excel. To me, the hallmark of real achievers is their desire to excel for their society and community. And in doing, the inevitable and unsought byproduct is that they excel for themselves. They know that the truly important aspects of life have no price tag. A philosophy that people like Mother Teresa and Princess Diana understood and lived well. I believe the achievers in the workplace or in society bring a blend of passionate pragmatism to what they do, with impressive result. They also need to be informed opportunists, so they can grasp the trends, the chances, and use them to bring innovation, the lifeblood of growth, and the first strand of Griffith's mission. I've never had much time for the herd instinct, and risks are at the core of all innovation, and I am a risk taker from way back. Just before Griffith University opened back in 1969, Ford offered my late husband and I its second franchise in Brisbane. And we had no idea how we would raise the $20,000 needed to operate the dealership. It might as well have been $200,000 to us. But this was clearly our best chance to make something of our lives. And I believe that our dreams are our possibilities in life. After all, adventurous hearts accomplish great things. And besides that, if you aim at nothing, you'll always hit it. So every so often, I guess you have to let your spirit of adventure triumph over your good sense. So back in 1969, Bernie and I tallied our total assets at $5,000, just a quarter of what we needed, and it seemed like our mission impossible. Bernie's colleagues did everything they could to dissuade us, and they stressed how bad the car market was at that time and said that we would go under for sure. But we took the risk, and we were almost totally owned by the finance companies and the banks. Our cars were taken on consignment because we couldn't afford to buy stock. And Ford scrutinised our operations, keen for maximum sales. Some unions today complain about a 40-hour week, and I can tell you it felt as if we were working a 40-hour day. And our mission impossible seemed at times like mission intolerable, but we all know more people curl up and die through undersatisfaction than overwork. Our business never lost a cent in those formative years, and I learned that hard work really is the yeast that raises the dough, and that calculated risks are worth taking, so cautiously we grew. Growth in itself presented new challenges and scope for real innovation, and we took the opportunity to do business differently in a far more personalised and professional fashion. That was an era when salesmen did a lot of business in pubs, and sometimes they'd turn up at work a little worse for wear. And I knew what I would want to see if I were a customer walking into a motor dealership. I would expect a professional atmosphere and a professional sales staff. And that is precisely the approach and innovation that set us on course for future success. Innovation is vital, and I think it is worth considering whether Australia provides the ultimate climate for innovation. I sometimes ponder what would have happened to someone like Bill Gates if he'd been born an Australian. What would be the impact on the course of history? Please maintain the respect, the penchant for innovation that Griffith University will have instilled in you. Do your bit to see that Australia produces a Bill Gates. We have the climate for him to succeed on our own shores. Remember that innovation and risk-taking are intertwined. And remember the works of Robert F. Kennedy, that only those who dare to fail greatly can ever achieve greatly. Or of Lloyd George, who said, "Don't be afraid to take a big step if one is indicated, because you can't cross a chasm in 2 small jumps." The next strand of Griffith's mission statement has an impact here too. I believe that superior, well-rounded managers are the most important assets a successful company can have. Management is no armchair ride, and clearly a good manager will combine talents, skills, and attitudes from a range of paradigms and disciplines. The quality of thought and action from the classical scholar, who is equally au fait with art of science, with psychology or technology, with writing or budgeting, will be one of the factors that keeps Australia as a lucky country into the next millennium. I see lots of good sense in those graduates who choose to start at the lowest rung and work their way up. With the right attitude, they will do so quickly. Of all the skills most useful to managers, perhaps it is emotional intelligence that stands out. The ability to get along well with fellow workers, employees, bosses, customers, and clients. Some people skills can be taught, or at least awareness raised, of how individual personalities influence this vexed minefield that is communications. The value of this across the spectrum of courses is immense. And as Stephen Covey says, seek first to understand, whether that means yourself or the situation. I see the odd business leader or manager who forgets that they cannot do it alone, that it is the employees who generate the wealth of an organisation. I have always, as a bedrock belief, acted on the premise that people matter most. Humility about your role in an organisation, even if you lead it, never goes astray. Australia, in contrast, shouldn't be humble. Author Bryce Courtney speaks often about how well the qualities of this nation match with the emerging trends and factors for success needed for the 2020 vision and the decades beyond. The international metropolis is where we live, not just our occasional address in some industries and pursuits. We must ride on the crest of the intelligence of this nation to find the bonanzas, the economic tailwinds, the high-tech products that we can export, so we do remain competitive with the rising nations and productivity costs they can achieve. Or else we will face the time bombs of an idle nation, the anxiety of unemployment, the burgeoning drug problems and the associated crimes these breed. This realm of the unresolved and the seemingly unresolvable is one where you also have to play a role. Education is the enemy of intolerance. There is a blank slate on vital community causes out there, of problems, clamouring for solutions, where your business skills and education equip you to personally write some answers. I have no doubt that the principles of social justice instilled in you at Griffith will find voice in the volunteer roles you take on as maybe committee or board members supporting a non-profit sector. This sector is one of the fastest growing elements of our society as government withdraws more and more and the community must shoulder increasing and complex responsibilities. And did you know that in Britain a new charity forms every half hour? That Australia has nearly 120,000 non-profit organisations. So take up the cudgels. There are a lot of people you could help who deserve a fairer crack of the whip. As well as social justice, I have to say how pleased I am to see Griffith expressing the importance of equity. While equity operates on many fronts, I have a little experience of the unstoppable revolution that women in the workforce have been part of, the momentum that some call the pink collar revolution. Being female in my industry was a decided disadvantage when my late husband died of cancer at a tragically young age in 1977. And the attitude, quite literally, from the male-dominated car industry was, "Go home, girlie, you can't run a motor business." The industry certainly could have used a good equity policy then. Thankfully, that industry and many others like it have travelled a great attitudinal distance in the decades since. The education industry amongst them, I am amazed that in one generation such 7-league boot strides have occurred. In my day, if you were female, you were stereotyped in your career choices and went nursing or teaching or became a stenographer in those few short years before marriage became your career terminus. And for many, that was a frustrating and disappointing set of circumstances. And the high rates of mental illness amongst married women of those decades confirms this. Now I know so many young mothers who managed to be devoted to their children as well as owning and managing businesses. And in my day, if you were an older person and decided to study, your local paper would write about you because you were unusual and therefore news. This concept today of lifelong learning, of making universities literally an occasional address, is so logical and a great response to the change that is such a thread in the tapestry of our lives today. And I am delighted that people of all ages and stages of their lives are being encouraged to venture afresh into fields of thought or to round off the wisdom gained in the University of Life. In turn, to round off these few words this evening, may I reiterate my thanks for this great honour. My congratulations to all the graduates here tonight. And may I leave you with two special thoughts I have encountered of late. The first is the definition of a university as being four walls with tomorrow inside. You are very important to Queensland's tomorrow, to Australia's tomorrow, and to the globe's tomorrow. And as you fill your role, remember the elements of Griffith's mission statement. and remember the advice that comes from Stephen Covey about the secret to a balanced life, that it means to live, to love, to learn, and leave your own special legacy. Thank you.
Thank you.